Hi, I'm Victor Brick, and welcome to July's Good Old Uncle Vic. Lynn and I had the pleasure of traveling to Normandy, France this past June to observe the celebrations for the Normandy D-Day invasions. It was June 6, 1944, when the Allies invaded Europe. And while we were there, we toured the Paratrooper Museum, we toured Bloody Omaha Beach, we toured the American Cemetery overlooking Omaha Beach, and we also toured several of the towns where the Easy Company, from the Band of Brothers fought, including Carrollton and Saint Marie de Mont, which is the start of the odyssey of Jumpin' Joe Burley. Now, who was Jumpin' Joe Burley? Jumpin' Joe Burley was a paratrooper in the 101st Airborne, hence the term Jumpin' Joe. The 101st is the same division that Easy Company, the Band of Brothers, fought in. And during the Normandy invasion, Jumpin' Joe parachuted out over Saint Marie de Mont. But he was so low that his parachute, when he jumped out of the plane, that his parachute got hung up in the steeple of the church. And no, this is not the guy that was made famous in the movie The Longest Day that got hung up in the church. That was John Steele of the 82nd Airborne, and that town was St. Meridis, and yes indeed, we did see that church in that town. But Jumpin' Joe Burley got hung up in a place called St. Marie de Mont, and he finally cut himself down, and after he dropped down, he was captured by the Germans. And of course, there was a lot of confusion on D-Day, and he was able to escape. Well, lo and behold, they captured him again, and this time they took off his dog tags and took off his uniform so he wouldn't be able to escape again, but he escaped anyway. So they captured him and they said, to heck with this. They stuck him on a train and sent him to a prisoner of war camp in Poland. And while he was there, he escaped not once but twice. Recaptured and escaped a second time. The second time he escaped, he headed towards the east to hook up with the Russians, because remember, he's in Poland. And he ended up hooking up with a Russian tank company. He only knew 2 words of Russian, comrade and American. And he actually, Americana. And he actually ended up fighting with his tank unit all the way to Berlin and got wounded in the Battle of Berlin. So now they take him to a field hospital, and the people in the field hospital realize he's an American. They say, hey, this guy's a spy. And so they figured he's a spy, but he was able to talk them into taking him to the American embassy, because he was an American soldier, Jumpin' Joe Burley. So they get to the embassy, and the embassy says, yes, there was an American soldier, Jumpin' Joe Burley, but he died in Normandy, and we have his dog tag. They found his dog tags to prove it. But he was finally able to convince the ambassadors, the American ambassador, to take his fingerprints, and 6 weeks later, they proved that he was in fact Jumpin' Joe Burley. But now, unfortunately, he's behind the Iron Curtain. The war's over, he's behind the Iron Curtain, and he's got to get back to the United States, the long route. Turkey, Israel, Italy, back to Muscatine, Michigan, and he gets there just in time, 2 weeks after they have held his funeral in his home church. So there was Jumpin' Joe Burley. Now, there is a happy ending to this story. 2 years later, Joe Burley got married in that church. And although forgotten in the U.S., because he's the only American ever to fight in World War II, for both the Americans and the Russians, he's a bit of a hero in Russia. He took a tour of Russia in 2002, I think, right before he died. He passed away in 2004. And in 2010, they opened a Joe Burley exhibit in Moscow. Now, by now, as I said, Joe Burley had passed away, but the exhibit was dedicated by the American ambassador, John Burley. Yes, Joe Burley's son. Can you believe it? And as Casey Stengel would say, you can look it up. Now, how does the story of Joe Burley relate to us? Joe Burley is an example of a guy the best example of what can be accomplished with persistence. Persistence and the proper attitude. Joe Burley was not about to let himself become a victim. He was not going to let things happen to him. He was going to make things happen. This guy escaped 4 times. 4 times. And the 4th time he escaped, because he couldn't find any American units to fight for, he hooks up with the Russians. Because he was determined, he was an American soldier, he came over to Europe to fight the Germans, and he was determined to do so, and daggone if he didn't. Good on you, Jumpin' Joe Burley. Now the question is, are you Joe Burley? Do you make things happen, or are you like too many people that play the victim and simply let things happen? Think of Joe Burley the next time you face a little adversity in your life. Are you going to be a victim, or are you going to be Joe Burley? Now, we hope you enjoyed this Uncle Vic, and if you'd like a text version of this Uncle Vic or for past fit tips or Uncle Vics, you can visit our website at brickbodies.com. And we close every Uncle Vic with a thought for the day. And the thought for today is there are 3 types of people in this world. Those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and those that wonder, what the heck just happened? So until we meet again, that's it from good old Uncle Vic.